Several more days passed, each of them seeing Akachi's attempts to visit Emily rebuffed in the usual manner. Finally, the date of the party arrived. Please give me a dancing CG. Akachi was clad in a stately kimono, as was the maiden accompanying him. I need to see this. I need this. Well, the party will be underway soon. We ought to be on our way. He's so pretty! I called it. You are still so tense. If you don't loosen up, you won't be able to enjoy the party, you know. I think you may have tied the obi a little too tightly, Chi. No, this is how you're meant to do it. A snug obi is a fashion standard all women have to get used to at some point. Girl in kimono? Hey. Something wrong, Kobayashi? Blah. You're so cute! Look at you! You make a very pretty lady. Don't give me that innocent! Is something wrong, rubbish? The protesting maiden, or as it turned out, Kobayashi, elaborately dressed as one, loudly voiced his disapproval. I know I said I'd do anything, and I know a man never goes back on his word. Still, you know this wasn't the sort of thing I had in mind. My chest hurts, and even walking straight is a complete nightmare. Can't I at least go home for a bit? I'm afraid not. We haven't the time. Seiji! You can't carry on shouting and making a scene like that. You need to smile and talk more like a lady. It's such a shame, really. You're quite pretty so long as you keep your mouth shut. But as soon as you speak, the entire image just falls apart. Gah! You're the last person who has the right to chastise anyone for unladylike behavior. Especially when you talk like that. Still, I'm doing this for Emily, so I suppose I'll just have to grin and bear it. It's all in the mind. If I can convince myself I'm fine, then fine I'll be. Are you alright, Kobayashi? Let me look at your kimono. Oh, it's so nice. Oh, I'm so glad we're seeing some Japanese style clothing. That's all I ever wanted. Oh god. How am I gonna, like, ladyfy this? I don't even know if it's possible. Alright, we're gonna try. Certainly. I'm perfectly fine, Akachi. I mean, Akachi-san. Also, you really shouldn't call me Kobayashi. We agreed on Seiko, remember? It wouldn't do to arouse anyone's suspicions, you know. Well, you certainly seem to have adapted quickly. Not bad at all. I hope you're grateful for all the trouble I went through to get you dressed and apply your makeup. I'm grateful for your assistance, Chi. Likewise. Thank you very much. Everyone will be fooled. I'm terribly sorry to present you with such a tight schedule, Miss Whiteley, but individuals in all of these places would like to speak with you. You needn't apologize. I'm honored that people feel that way. I'd like to meet with all of them, even if only for a short while, as long as my own time will allow. Thank you very much. I shall be sure to pass your words on. Oh! Incidentally, regarding this evening's party, I figured you might like to know that diplomats and exchange students have been invited to attend, in addition to the usual sorts of party-goers. Exchange students? Why not take this opportunity to try wearing a kimono? We have a number of lovely patterns for you to choose from. Yes, yes! Give me Emily in a kimono, it's all I want! As though he had been anticipating this opportunity, the government official laid out a number of different kimono one by one. Red, yellow, orange, purple, blue, green, pink. The room was suddenly awash with color. This may finally be my chance to see Akachi and Kobayashi again. My heart raced with excitement, and I turned my attention to the sea of Japanese formal wear spread before me. Thank you. I've never tried wearing a kimono before, though, so I haven't the faintest idea where to begin. But if I'm ever afforded the opportunity, I want you to be the very first to see it. Is that all right?
Of course it is. I'll be right there at your side, ensuring you don't trip or stumble.
It seems so long ago that we had that conversation. I had wanted Akachi to be the first to see me in my kimono, to hear his reaction. No. The matter of who is first is of little importance. If this is the gambit that will allow me to see him again, it will have served its purpose in full.
Parties like these feel rather pitiful when you've seen the real thing. They put so much effort into imitating something they've only read about.
That's simply the way of things. Japan's modernization began with our nation trying to replicate many aspects of Western powers, in the hopes of replicating their success after all. That aside, I see you've broken your girlish facade again.
Oh God.
What's wrong with that? It's not as though there's anyone within earshot. Or have you decided you can't resist my girlish charms, Kanchan?
You needn't put such effort into the jest when your costume and makeup speak so convincingly for you.
Ouch! I hope you haven't forgotten that you're the one behind this whole harebrained scheme.
The hall was filled with lively chatter of all sorts, very luckily drowning out Kobayashi, as a string quartet softened the gathering with a selection of chamber music. Is this going to be like a Cinderella moment where everyone's like, who's that beautiful lady coming in? Suddenly, the pair took notice of commotion on the other side of the hall. At its center, they could just barely make out a kimono dyed the pink hue of cherry blossoms.
Miss Whiteley! Are you alright? Are you injured?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm still not used to walking in this yet. Please, don't worry yourself. I merely stumbled. Well, they were right. She looks so cute in a kimono. She got her hair up and she got cherry blossoms in her hair. You'll love to see it. Oh, look. Oh, it's so cute. Walking in a kimono was surprisingly more different than I had expected. After reassuring everyone, I picked myself up and straightened my posture. The hairpin holding up my hair made a pleasant chime as it bobbed with my head. Akachi and Kobayashi would be somewhere in this hall. I just knew they would, and I scanned left and right trying to locate them.
Allow me to make an introduction, Miss Whiteley. This is Mr. Fraser of the British Embassy. The man beside him is Mr. Hayashi, who works in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Mr. Carino from the Ministry of Communications.
Good day to you all. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I spent every spare moment stealing sidelong glances in hopes of catching a glimpse of them, but as more people gathered around me, the endeavor became nigh impossible. If I didn't hurry, I would likely end up whisked off to some other gathering without even getting to see them. With a sense of impending panic, I began to cast my gaze around the hall once more. And then... Oh! At last, I espied Akachi. I would have recognized that beautiful, silvery hair and dignified bearing anywhere. But just as I approached him, I saw another figure enter my vision. Emily, no! Don't fall for this! It's a beautiful Kobayashi is all it is! What? Who's that girl? Standing right next to Akachi was a young Japanese girl. While I couldn't clearly make out her face from where I was standing, given their animated conversation, they appeared to be on very friendly terms.
Some of that is due to its policy of rapid modernization, for which you serve as a perfect symbol. Every aspect of your being sets you apart from us. Your eyes, your hair, the color of your skin, your class. Even your way of thinking is foreign.
Perhaps a Japanese girl is more fitting a partner for him than I. In spite of how I long to be with him, it doesn't seem like there is a place for me at his side any longer. Aw man, she got so upset, all the world lost its color. I found myself paralyzed by that regrettably familiar sense of unease and loneliness. Though I wanted to call out, I floundered, unable to find my voice. The hall seemed so vast that unless I shouted, he would surely never notice me. Akachi. Akachi. I spoke his name aloud, but my voice was so weak that the music and conversation filling the hall had drowned it out. Though it was exactly the result I had expected, my voice wouldn't stop shaking. It seemed, in that moment, that I had forgotten how to shout at all.
Emily, is that you?
Akachi! You noticed me after all.
Miss Whiteley, it's time for us to be moving along to our next engagement. We wouldn't want you to trip again and injure yourself, so we'll make sure someone is here to support you as we leave.
Oh, please, wait!
I'm afraid we need to hurry. Our schedule is a tightly metered thing as it is. Now this way, if you please.
Good grief, you guys are so aggressive. Two of the attendants took me firmly by the arms, and it nearly seemed as though I would be forcibly removed from the hall. I pleaded as best I could to remain, but to no avail.
Please stay back. Miss Whiteley is an esteemed guest of the government and a young lady of high social standing. Ordinary guests must not approach.
I've heard that same dribble hundreds of times now. Please, let me past.
We cannot allow that. Those who would cause a disturbance will be thrown out, invitation or no.
The security guards moved to block Akachi's path to me. But even as they came between us, they could not stop the meeting of our eyes. His gaze, like his heart, was earnest. Seeing him for the first time in what seemed so long, I felt something that I had kept suppressed deep down come roaring forth like a tempest. Akachi! Akachi! Shouting, I knew, was behavior unbecoming of a lady, and generally a show of poor manners at the best of times. And yet I could not restrain myself. At that moment I had no care for etiquette. As I called out to him, I felt as though each word would see me break into tears, like my heart was twisted and torn into thousandths. Aww. So, what happened after that? They took Emily to wherever her next engagement was, and we were summarily thrown out of the hall.
She called out for me, again and again, and yet I could do nothing for her.
Though his voice was quiet, he clenched his fist tightly, a shudder ever so slight passing through him. By the by, Akachi, there's something that has been bothering me.
What is it? In as few words as possible, if you don't mind.
I overheard that diplomat, Mr. Fraser, talking at the party. According to him, Emily will be put on a ship back to London in 3 days. Oh, God. Now we got a time limit. Oh, no. Guys, rescue her, please. The issues of mixed residency and her personal safety were mentioned, though I wasn't able to catch everything. I got the impression she hasn't truly accepted the reality of a return to Engelsch. Then why doesn't she simply refuse to leave? Can't you just spirit her away and put her into hiding?
That would be considerably less easy a task than you make it sound. She's the daughter of an earl and heir to House Whiteley.
I haven't seen the bottom of this angle.
If she refuses to abide by the government's decision, she'll be causing problems for more than just her own self. And were any harm to come to her, it would no doubt damage relations between our governments, escalating a personal issue into a diplomatic one.
Then what do you plan to do? Will you just stand on the pier and watch as she's ferried back halfway around the world? Akachi began to speak, but then fell into frustrated silence. Kobayashi, no less disheartened, grabbed his arm. What's with this indecisive attitude? I get that you want to play by the rules, but these rules aren't in your favor, and if you let yourself be constrained by them, you'll find yourself unable to do anything. You know that, right? She was calling out to you again and again. She wants to see you. Are you really okay with following the official procedure that would keep the two of you apart?
Of course I'm not!
Akachi's face contorted as he bristled at Kobayashi's words. He grabbed Kobayashi's shoulders, looking at his friend straight on.
I want to see her again, too. To see her again, embrace her again, to be by her side again. Did you for one moment think otherwise?
Then what is there to think about? Go and see her, damn it! You spend so much time ruminating over such straightforward things. What does it matter if they won't let you in the front door? Scale the walls if that's what it takes. What good is all your training if you won't put it to good use when it's needed?
The two of them glared at each other for a long moment, as though at the slightest goading one of the other might throw the first punch. But eventually, Akachi let out a deep sigh.
Perhaps you're right. I surely have a long road ahead of me if I'm being taught lessons in life and priorities by you.
Huh. I've been your partner for years. You ought to know better than to take such a capable assistant lightly. I hope you have a good night's rest. You must be exhausted. There are still 3 days until your ship departs for London, but we wouldn't want you to fall ill before then. Long voyages by sea do tend to take a toll on the body, after all.
I will. Thank you very much. Once I was alone, I slumped down on the sofa, still wearing my kimono. My elaborate hairpin made a metallic jingle, sounding softly through the room like a wind chimes notes carried off on a breeze. If I don't leave the country at the appointed time, it could strike a sour note in the relations between Japan and England, and that would cause trouble for a great many people beyond myself. But I'm not ready to return home. Not like this. I still... Suddenly, a faint sound at the closed window interrupted my reverie. Romeo, Romeo, where art thou? Romeo, wherefore art thou? I looked up but saw nothing. Then I heard the sound again, this time much clearer than before. Is someone there? My voice was lowered to almost a whisper. No response came. I rose to my feet, my attention now fully focused on the window. All I could see through the gap in the curtains was the dark of the night sky. What if some intruder lurked just beyond the walls? The thought of it caused me to tense up and set my heart to racing. Should I go and call someone? As I stepped back from the window, pondering what I ought to do, I heard a quiet voice.
Are you in there, Emily?
Akachi?
I realize my impropriety in visiting a woman's chambers unbidden, and at this late hour no less. Even so, I have come. Would you be willing to open the window and let me in?
Before I could even voice a response, I hurried to the window and threw open the curtains, unfastening the latch that held the window shut. Oh, that's so good to see you, man.
Thank you very much.
It felt like an eternity since I had last seen his face and heard his voice so near. As soon as I looked upon him, a feeling of warmth rose within my chest. As much as I had to say to him, in that moment I could scarcely find the words to speak. I wanted little more than to stand and take in the sight of him, but my vision began to blur. Okay, before the tears obscure, we gotta see. Alright.
I'm sorry I took so long to come.
I'm glad you did, but what happened to your face?
Oh, yes, that. Well, for all the training I've done, I can't say that I have ever received instruction in wall climbing.
He gave a bittersweet smile, his cheeks peppered with small abrasions. You really climbed all the way up here?
That is the only way through the window. I apologize for showing up in this state.
That doesn't matter. I'm more concerned for how dangerous that was. What if you had fallen? I don't want to think of what might have happened. Why did you put yourself at such risk?
Because you called out for me. Is that not reason enough?
His smile was now tinged with a wistful sadness.
I wish I could have been the first to tell you so, but that kimono suited you perfectly.
Thank you. It makes me happy to hear you say so. And thank you for coming to see me. That was all I could blurt out before my words faltered once again, washed away in a stream of tears. No matter the sadness or loneliness I had felt, I had told myself to keep pressing onward, to do what I could. But somewhere along that uncertain path... All this time, I've been trying to keep pushing myself forward, telling myself I had to maintain my composure, like you would. But I couldn't do it. Every day, every hour, I thought of nothing but you. You were ever in my thoughts.
I've been desperate to see you, too. I had hoped to be by your side each day as you took in the sights and sounds of Japan. I'm so sorry that you've had to spend so long bounded in by loneliness. It must have been difficult.
Akachi reached out his hand toward me, but from the hallway we both heard the guards in an uproar.
There's an intruder on the top floor. Catch him! Block off the stairs and the corridors. Make sure there's nowhere he can escape.
The sudden shouts and pounding footfalls came from a lower floor, but Akachi knew as well as I that it was only a short time before they would be knocking at my door.
Emily, I'll come and visit you again soon. You need to stay.
No! I'm coming with you! Akachi's eyes opened wide in surprise as I hurried to my bed and reached under it. From beneath, I produced a rope that I had fashioned from bed sheets. Knotting one end around a pillar, I pitched the other out the window. I'm out of here with my boy. Forget loneliness. Forget all y'all. I'm out.
When did you have the time to make that?
It was just something I found myself putting together several weeks past, thinking I might eventually have need of it. I'm here in Japan because I chose to follow you home, and I don't intend to simply smile, wave goodbye, and allow us to be separated again.
You never cease to amaze.
His voice was both courteous and gentle. He extended his hand to me.
Would you allow me to lead the way?
Yes, of course. Yay! That's my girl! That's my girl! You run! You run with your boy.
The intruder's escaped! Hurry up and catch him! He's got that English noblewoman with him! We need to rescue her on the double!
Even as the commotion in and around the hotel escalated, Akachi and I were able to make our escape. We ran and ran, through innumerable narrow back alleys, pressing on until I hadn't a clue how far we had gone. Akachi led the way, my hand clasped tightly in his. In spite of all that was transpiring, the immediacy of his presence put me completely at ease. Although we were being pursued, all I felt was joy at being with him once more. Finally, we emerged from another of the many narrow avenues onto a broader street, and there found a familiar face waiting for us. This way, you two! Chi! And you, Miss... You didn't even get time to change, really? Beside Chi stood the comely young lady who I had seen speaking animatedly with Akachi at the party. I don't believe I've made your acquaintance, miss. It's a pleasure.
Really? We sail halfway around the world together, and you don't believe you've made my acquaintance?
What? The voice that passed her lips was both immediately familiar and passing strange, and I stared at her now with renewed scrutiny. The more I did, the more familiar her face seemed to me. This is some bangin' music. Is that you, Kobayashi? Yep, in the flesh. I really had no idea. Your eyes and your smile are so pretty, and your figure is so fetching in that kimono.
Huh. As nice as it is to hear a compliment from you, I'm not sure how I ought to feel about being found fetching. Especially from a lady far more so than I.
Here, Emily. You must be hungry after all that running, and in a kimono no less. Have one of these. My onigiri will pick you right up. She handed me 2 onigiri wrapped in bamboo. Receiving them, I was surprised to find them warm to the touch.
Just keep making your way through the downtown area. There are loads of people about, so it ought to be easy to disappear into the crowds. We'll try to get your pursuers to split off in the opposite direction. Now listen, Akachi. You be sure to treat her like a proper gentleman, all right?
I don't need you to tell me that.
Thank you so much, both of you. With Kobayashi and Chi having bid us farewell, we turned and hurried off once more. Gas lamps flickered along the street, casting their light against distinctly Japanese buildings and the many people milling around in between them. Many seemed to react with surprise as we passed. No doubt a Westerner in a kimono running down a city street was quite the uncommon sight. But I wasn't about to let their stares bother me. The warmth and reassurance of Akachi's hand clasping mine furnished me with all the strength I needed to press onward.
This way, Emily!
Ah! Without warning, he pulled me down a side road. Then, much to my surprise, drew me closer to him. My face was so close to his that I could feel his breath against my cheeks. Akachi?
Quiet. The police are passing by.
As I peered down the narrow avenue, I could see a group in uniforms making their way through the crowd.
There is every chance this incident may have already been reported back to the Metropolitan Police Headquarters.
Yes, you're right. We'll need to be careful. His mind seemed wholly occupied assessing the situation. Looking at him, it was as though I was the only one taking notice of how close we were. The thought of it caused me to flush with embarrassment.
Is something amiss? You didn't sprain your ankle running in that kimono, did you?
I'm fine. I spent no small number of days running here and there among the hills and the countryside when I was young. You just surprised me when you, hugged me suddenly like that. For a second, his eyebrows raised in surprise and realization.
I acted without due consideration. I had no ulterior motives, I promise you. I'm sorry. The more I think on it, the more ashamed I now feel.
Oh, wait! Akachi's face seemed nearly to glow a crimson hue, and he flung himself back from me, almost as if pushed. But before I knew it, I had pulled his hand back closer to me. Timidly, I entwined my fingers in his, gazing up at him. I'd like to continue holding hands.
All right.
His face still as red as my own, he gently squeezed my hand in his. Together, we set off again, weaving our way through the throngs of people as we went. Colorful stalls lined the thoroughfare, stalls offering all manner of wares, from glistening hairpins to ohajiki to steaming helpings of manaka and soba noodles. Ah, so these are the manaka Kobayashi spoke of. They look delicious.
Well, I'll be. You've become quite the man since I last saw you, Kenbo. And that young lady on your arm is as pretty as a doll. Ha 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 ha.
Kenbo?
Would you kindly stop calling me that? Oh. And since we're here, I would like 2 manaka, please.
Coming right up. I'm not the sort who'd stimmy 2 lovers out on the town. I'll fill them with plenty of bean jam just for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Even a passing glance showed the confections nearly bursting with the red bean jam that made up their filling. As its soft sweetness spread in my mouth, I couldn't help but smile. After finishing the treat, we once again took to the bustling streets of Tokyo. We continued at a brisk pace until we heard the faint rolling of waves upon the shore, and before us yet more streets illuminated by gas lamps. Our appetites stimulated by such activity, we decided to partake of the onigiri Chi had given to us. It was the first time I had eaten Japanese rice, and with each bite the taste seemed somehow more profound. This is delicious!
I'm glad you like it. Oh, you have some rice stuck around your mouth, Emily.
Huh? Oh, sorry! Where are my manners? I felt like a child, carried away with excitement at what seemed like an onslaught of new sights, sounds, and tastes, and hastened to cover my mouth with my hand.
Stay still a moment.
He gazed into my eyes, and I stopped. Suddenly, I felt a slight tickling on my lips and saw him wipe his finger across my mouth. You can be surprisingly bold sometimes.
You think so?
Bold enough to surprise me, at least. I nodded vigorously, and he returned a shy smile, eyes filled with compassion.
My mother would often do this for me.
Your mother?
Yes. She was a calm soul, ever gentle, who always told me I ought to savor every bite when eating rice, for every grain had value. She passed away of illness when I was still young, however, and I recall a few other memories of her.
I'm much the same. I lost both of my parents when I was still just a little girl. I barely even remember their faces now. Still, I'll bet they'd be surprised were they to see me now, traveling to the Orient, walking the streets of Japan, wearing a beautiful kimono like this. Being able to see your homeland together with you like this was a dream come true for me. I fell silent, and the only sound we heard was the gentle, rhythmic lapping of the waves. Our fingers intertwined, and before we knew it, our hands were pressed together. Warmed and comforted by each other, we gazed out together onto the gently illuminated streets.
The two of us could scarcely be more different.
After some time had passed, Akachi spoke again, still quiet.
The lands of our birth, our social class. They couldn't be further apart, and the same could be said of our upbringing, our way of life, and the expectations placed upon us. The privilege of being by your side, holding your hand like this, was perhaps too much for me to have ever hoped for. And yet, in spite of that, the paths of our lives ended up intertwining.
Aww. I saw the far-off look in his eyes, their dancing light filled with both tenderness and sadness.
Never before had I met a woman as bold, as full of vigor, as brave, or as impossible to leave unattended as you, and I doubt that, in the course of my life, I ever shall again.
You make it sound like I'm quite the handful.
I suppose you are, but even so.
He fell silent for a moment, pondering his words.
Even so, I love you just as you are, more than anyone in this world.
He gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. Aw, yay, another kiss. I don't know why, but I feel sad. It's like we had one night together before the world tore us apart from each other again. Don't make me sad. Don't give me a sad epilogue. My heart can't take it. With the sound of the surf echoing in our ears, we exchanged a quiet, gentle kiss. My heart raced, and yet my mind was at peace. Elation overwhelmed me, but still I felt such sadness that I was near the point of tears. Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one who's feeling sad. I wish we could remain like this forever, that I could be by your side. Well, for a moment. That one wish suffused every fiber of my being, overflowing within me. Even so, I couldn't bring myself to divulge to him my dearest wish, knowing that were I to give it life with my words, I would not fail to cry, and in so doing trouble him further. Akachi's arm around me granted the comfort and contentment which I had sorely lacked since I was separated from him.
I will promise you this, Emily. I promise you that no matter how far apart we may be, no matter what might stand between us, I will keep chasing after you, as you did when you followed me here to my homeland.
His warmth slowly moved beyond me. My eyes were moist and my vision blurry, but through them I could see the determination writ large across his face. His voice was calm, but had in it the iron of resolve. I nodded, looking back at him. Thank you. Please don't overdo it, though. You're sensible the majority of the time. Excessively so, even. But sometimes you become so outlandishly daring that it worries me.
Perhaps, but I would still pale in comparison to your bravery.
Suddenly, we heard the sound of rapidly approaching footsteps over the rhythmic rolling of the waves.
We found him! Take him into custody and ensure Miss Whiteley's safety! Inspector Fujita was on the right track. Keep them surrounded!
The police officers slowly approached, encircling us. Akachi and I both realized that the dreamlike evening we had spent together had at last reached its end, and a sigh escaped my lips. I'm sorry for the trouble I caused everyone. I simply wished to see what it was like to spend the evening strolling about town just once, so I snuck out of my room. He came to my aid when I was lost. Moments later, the police had set upon him.
Do as we tell you, and don't put up any resistance!
Guhhh! Akachi! Several police officers took him into custody. I desperately tried to stop them, but to no avail.
Don't worry. He'll be taken in, asked to give a statement, then released. Standard procedure. But if you try to put up a fight or make a scene of it, it may cause him to be suspected of more than he is already. If you want what's best for him, you'll stay silent.
I've seen you before. What are you doing here?
Ensuring the safety of this town and its people, as is the charge of all who serve as police. Our duty is to ensure the safety of all, without regard for race, place of birth, or social class. All are equal under the law.
He spoke with a certain indifference, and yet his words didn't ring hollow or come across as cold.
Be sure to see her back to her hotel safely. Treat her with the utmost care and respect.
Yes, sir! If you'd please come with us, Miss Whiteley.
All right. I turned my head, looking back at Akachi. As I did, he returned my gaze. I believe in you, Akachi. Without delay, I was led away from the scene, accompanied by a small team of police officers.
What would we do with him, Inspector Fujita?
You're Inspector Fujita?
Take him to the station. I don't think you need to worry about him running now.
I couldn't help but notice you wear your sword on your right hip. Inspector Fujita, might you be...
Your master is an acquaintance of mine, boy. I'd recognize the katana you carry anywhere. He was a stubborn, hard-headed, inflexible man, but I can see you've inherited his determination to do what you believe to be right.
Interesting.
If you feel strongly enough to stake your life on it, then see the matter through to its conclusion, whether for good or ill. Should that be your decision, it may prove possible for even a foolish imitation to surpass the genuine article.